Welcome back to Rock Island Line. I'm your host, Annika O'Melia. Today, I'm talking with Kelli Feigley of Fresh Films. And if you live in Rock Island and care about the future of this city, you need to hear this conversation. Fresh Films is working to bring Rockline Studios, a new $12 million film and television production studio, right here to Rock Island, positioning our community to become part of Illinois' nearly billion-dollar-a-year film industry. The project is getting closer to breaking ground, and I'm going to make this bold statement. If Rock Island and Fresh Films can pull this off, I believe it could be the most transformational development for Rock Island's identity, economy, capacity, and future that I have seen in my lifetime. I truly believe that. Listen to this conversation, learn what Fresh Films and Rockline Studios could mean for our community, and then consider what you can do to help move this project across the finish line. And now, my conversation with Kelli Feigley. I'm here today with Kelli Feigley from Fresh Films. And Kelli, thank you so much for joining me on the Rock Island Line.
Thanks, Annika.
And so we always start out looking at your Rock Island story. So how did you, because you weren't born here, no. So how did we wind up having you, this great asset in our community?
In Rock Island. So Eslen, who's my husband, but also my business partner, went to Augustana. And so we had been probably in Rock Island a couple times for weddings over the years, right? And in 2014 or 15, we were looking at partnering with a college to kind of enhance and bring the Fresh Films program, add some legs to the Fresh Films program. And so we reached out. We were in Chicago at the time and had lived there for 20 plus years. And we reached out to Loyola and DePaul and a few others. And then Eslen reached out to Jeff Cousins at Augustana, who he had known for years and was still considered him a mentor, and said, "Hey, Jeff, we're kind of thinking of partnering with a college. Would you look at our proposal of how we might partner with a college?" And Jeff read it through and had a conversation with us. And he said, "Would you consider having a conversation about coming to Augie?" And we kind of laughed. And he was like, "No, I'm serious." And so there was an initiative at Augustana at the time, part of the Creative Cool 2030 vision. And Augustana was looking at part of their strategic plan was to expand on film and media. And we met with Jeff and then Steve Balls and other folks at Augustana at the time, and they were really excited about what we did at Fresh Films. And we created a partnership in early 2016. And by, I think, we had actually started talking to him in late 2015, and then we started looking at houses, and then we were blown away by what our house in Chicago costs and what a beautiful house in the Broadway district and other places in Rock Island. And so we started looking at houses, and at the same time we're talking with Augustana, and we ended up doing a partnership with Augie to bring Fresh Films to Augustana and then start their film and media program, which was called Entertainment Media. And then we laugh because I was out of town, and Eslen came here with our three daughters, who at the time were 6th, 4th, and 2nd grade. And they looked at a house in the Highland Park District in Rock Island and went in, and we lost all negotiating power as they walked around. And the girls were like, "I want this room and I want this room." And it was a beautiful house. And people will always say like, "Oh, we looked at that house. It was for sale for forever." It had lolly columns in the basement. So I think people freaked out, and we were like, "No big deal. It's fine." And, it's a beautiful old historic house. And so we, as we were doing the, partnering with Augie, we were also buying a house and selling one. And then making day trips to Augustana. But we were essentially here by July of 2016, pulling up the moving truck, meeting all of our neighbors. And it's been a beautiful experience. And we said in the early days, we're like, it's all good except we can't find good pizza, but we have found, you can go to Great River Brewing and their pizza is pretty darn good. And every once in a while we'll get Tony's, and then people have told me, what's the new one in Bettendorf?
Oh, I don't know.
I'll think of it in a second, but there's but anyway, that people, so.
Isn't that funny? the like relationship with pizza, because my husband and I moved to St. Louis, and St. Louis, they love their St. Louis style pizza, and we were like, this is gross. But you know, we in the Quad Cities are like, Quad City style pizza is the best pizza, but I like Chicago pizza too.
Well, and it's so funny because the first time we came here, or maybe I was working at Augie, and I grabbed Harris Pizza, and I'd never had long strip style cut pizza, and I remember eating it in the car, which I shouldn't do, but I did. I was starving, and I like, what is dropping on me? And it was the sausage crumbles. And I was like, oh, because the sausage is different. But anyway, we've just grown to love the Quad Cities. Like, I'm an import, right? And we'll say to people, like, it's really cool here. Like, it's more integrate. Like, Chicago is a very diverse city, but everything is very segmented. Oh, this is the Indian neighborhood. Oh, the Korean neighborhood. This is the, Hispanic neighborhood, the Black neighborhood, right? And so, but here, and as in particular at Rock Island High School, like, it is crazy. Like, it is just a very integrated, it just is. And it's just really cool to see.
And you brought children here. So not only are you setting up your business, the partnership with Augustana, you're buying a house, but you're also adjusting 3 kids to new schools.
Right. And because Rock Island's on the year round, they were at Chicago Public Schools. They didn't get off till like the 22nd of June. And we're like, hey, sorry, school starts August 1st. But they were young enough that they probably didn't quite notice. And then our daughter, Georgie, originally went to Creative Arts Academy on the Davenport side, which was kind of weird. I'm not sure why we did this. I think we thought it was like more of an art school, not realizing it was part of Davenport Public Schools. But she eventually moved over by freshman year to Rock Island High School. And so all 3 are now done from Rocky. It's weird. School started today, August 5th.
Yep.
And no one is going to school today, so it's a little bit weird.
That is wild, because all mine started today.
Yeah, I'm right.
Yeah, so you don't have anyone in school anymore.
The last one graduated this past June or May, whenever it was. Yeah.
How did you feel about because a lot of people who reflect on moving here, a theme is that people are a little bit discouraged from choosing Rock Island. So they'll say, oh, you're moving to the area, you should live in this school district or this part of the town or this, and you guys pretty much live in the downtownish area.
Yeah.
And you chose to put your kids in public school, and you're coming from a city, so that might have not felt as overwhelming. But how was their experience at Rocky?
Oh, it was amazing. Well, so we lived in Chicago. We lived in West Ridge, Edgewater, which is already pretty diverse, and a lot of people from different cultures and backgrounds and different countries. And so when we were moving here, there was no way we were choosing Davenport or Bettendorf in particular. It was way too suburban feeling, and that was off the table. And then we considered Moline a little bit, but then too many Rock Island friends were like, no, you need to be in Rock Island. And our ACMS school was just 3 doors north of our house, and the reviews were great and people loved it. And so we were like, oh my God, we can walk our kids to school. And so we just, that was it. Like, we bought the house, we figured out the schools. We never really, I don't know, maybe I'm a bad parent because I never dug in and did all the, niche.com and all the other stuff to see which school district is the best. But there's so many like super fans from Rock Island for the school district, and people that we were meeting when we came here that were Augie faculty, and their kids were in Rock Island, and you're like, this is going to be a good place. Mm-hmm. And so there we went. And so, yeah, Alleman and Jordan were never on the table. We never did that back in Chicago. And so it was always like Rock Island schools. Yeah. It's been a great experience.
So you get a little bit of this city feel where you're in the big, broader world, and, maybe not as pristine or something, but you kind of feel like a city feel, but because I've lived in cities too.
Right.
So I feel like Rock Island has a tiny bit of that.
Oh, totally.
But it also has ample parking, and you don't have to, spend all your time in the car driving from place to place. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds. And I think for us, it has unlocked a lot of professional opportunities because housing is so affordable.
Yep.
So I mean, we live in just like the most affordable house. And I talk to my friends who live in big cities and all over the world, and they're just like, you could do anything because you don't have that big of a house payment. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of true.
It is. Well, and it's interesting because we have this conversation with friends who are from Chicago, and they will look and say, how much, like what? Like, they just don't understand sort of the affordability here, and even starting a business here or moving our business here, right? It's just the costs are lower and you can do more with a little bit less, right? Especially as a not-for-profit, right? You don't have a ton of resources. But and it's funny though, we'll even go out to dinner here. It's still so reasonable. And then we'll travel to Chicago, or we were just out east in Maine, and we're like, whoa, is that the real price of a hamburger today? Like, you just sort of get a little bit spoiled here, but it is true. And your comment on urban, this isn't, people will say, oh, you live in the suburbs. We're like, no, it's not the suburbs. And like, oh, you're in the farm. I'm like, no, it really is it's a city. It has the same issues and challenges as bigger cities, but on some smaller scale. But it also has all of the upside of a city, right? I think like there's a lot more services here, right? It has the feel of a city. There's a lot of walkability here versus in other places. I mean, if you lived in the suburbs of Bettendorf, you're not walking a lot of places, right? I don't even think so, right? Like the thing up on 53rd annoys us because everybody has to drive all the way up there. So yeah, and I just think also that so many different people from so many different backgrounds just makes life a lot cooler, right? So,
Yeah.
I don't know, we really like it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So Esalen had this connection. Yeah. You're kind of drawn to Augustana. You pick up life, move here, and you'd already been doing Fresh Films. Fresh Films was already a thing, but then your headquarters were basically relocated to Rock Island, but you still operate in cities across the country.
Yes, so we were...
Which I don't think probably a lot of people understand that or know that.
So Fresh Films started in 2002 in some of the Chicago public schools. And then by 2004... we were a national organization. So we operated every year, kind of like think of a music tour. So we would do a Fresh Films program in Chicago, and one in Atlanta, and one in Boston, and one in Los Angeles. And that was really how we did things for, 10, 12 years. And then, so even when we moved to the Quad Cities and we were in Rock Island, we moved our, Chicago office. We obviously... didn't pay rent anymore in Chicago, and we moved onto Augustana's campus at the time. And so, you have your offices, right, where you work from. And most of our production was always on like a location, if you will. So that changed. But we still ran multiple programs in other cities, and now also in the Quad Cities. And so we still did our program in Chicago and LA and other places. And then we added the Quad Cities to that. So really the only thing that changed, which two big things for the region, right? We moved our offices here. So we hired local people to help run the productions. And then we opened a program here. So then we started by 2017, I think, within 6 or 7 months of us being here, we did a program for high schoolers to learn filmmaking, and they were Quad City youth, which was kind of cool. And it was funny. We had a huge turnout the first couple of years with young people wanting to do it. So we were like, okay, so there's a need and people are excited. So it was cool.
Absolutely. I still want to get my second kid involved.
Do it.
Because I think she's going into 8th grade. So I think she's starting to get to the age where that'll be something she's really interested in. And yeah, so you have this national organization, your operations are moved to Rock Island, and you're operating, and then this opportunity comes up, which is you've been in the news and kind of this expansion of Fresh Films. Can you speak to kind of the exciting stuff that's going on for you right now?
Sure. So Fresh Films, as a nonprofit, our mission is to train young people ages 14 to 24 to build their skills, their connections, and their confidence to go into film and media jobs. And now it's not just film and TV. There's podcasts and social media and digital media, and everybody from Visit Quad Cities to Genesis to everybody else is creating, the social media content. So training for those type of jobs. And over the past 5 years since COVID, we've expanded. We had like 5, or 6 locations. And then now we have like 30 plus locations. So we have 4 in the Quad Cities, 4 in Chicago, some in Atlanta and Boston. And over the past couple of years, our program has always been basically a Tuesday, Thursday program where young people learn like fundamental skills, and those are based in schools or in Rock Island. Your daughter could do our program that's at the YWCA in downtown Rock Island. So those run 2 days a week. And then in this, we call that our level one, kind of our entry level, and it's free to young people always. And then we level them up into what we call our level two, which is an active working film set production. And so, last year in 2025, we created a feature film called Groundhog Gary 6 More Weeks, produced mostly in Rock Island. But it's an opportunity that really, it's an actual working production, a real film. It starred Mark Evan Jackson from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And so he's literally...
he's walking around Arts Alley. I
Yes!
mean, I saw the footage of it. It's like Rock Island is the set.
Exactly. And then we used Sylvan Island, we used Blackhawk State Park, and Jordan Catholic was our school set. But it's a real production. And so young people from the Quad Cities are working on this. They gain their IMDb credit, which is their like industry credential. And then we have other young people in our other program sites, like from Atlanta, from Los Angeles, from Boston. We fly them in. Now, this is funding that comes from other funders. So like the city of Boston is one of our funders. So part of their funding is allocated to bring Boston youth onto a working film production, which just happens to be in Rock Island. So now you have Boston students and Los Angeles students coming into Rock Island. The LA students made me laugh. They're like, "You have a basement? Can we see your basement?" Because they don't have basements in California. And then we, as part of it, they, so they're staying in Moline mostly because the Holiday Inn doesn't have room for a roll-away bed. Mm-hmm. So you can, so we have to, so most of the crew and cast is over at the Element in Moline in the Wyndham on John Deere Commons. And so they're like, "Oh my God, the river's pretty." And then they're eating at local restaurants. And then we have catering every day because film sets have to feed your cast and crew. So they're eating La Flama and Quad City Pancake House and all the locals. And then they go to Whitey's, which was, there's a great picture of all these Los Angelinos students and a couple chaperones like at Whitey's, this like great selfie. It's like super cool. But they're being exposed to the region, and especially the Chicagoans are like, "Wait, what?" Like, because again, the cost of living difference is so different. But so
as a young person, this is a place where you could get a foothold and even like buy a house for under $100,000 as you're a young working person. So they have a similar reaction to what does it look like to be young and work on a film set in Chicago, LA, Boston? Yeah. Oh, Rock Island.
Yeah. Right, Rock Island? Yeah, and so we've always been doing the fresh films thing, right? And so we've always had this. So since 2002, we've run the Fresh Films program and engaged young people and put them on working film sets, which is like what we always did. And then over the past few years, that working film set has almost been exclusively in Rock Island. And so now instead of us like jumping to Boston and jumping to LA and we now bring everybody here to do a bigger production. But the other thing we're doing is we're building a film studio. And so, and this I will clarify because people are like, because Skip Along's new building is amazing. And there's like, but it's a new building solely for Skip Along and the new YWCA, right? And so our goal is to build a studio, but we're really not building a building. We want to build an industry. And so we got an opportunity 3 years ago to apply for a grant. The state of Illinois Film Office team who had worked with, because they support us with grants to train youth here locally.
And that's Holly Sparkman and... Is that?
No, it's actually Peter Hawley, who's the Illinois Film Office director. Holly is the Quad City Film Office, and her job is to try to get film productions to come here. Peter Hawley, whose family is actually from Bettendorf.
Oh, right, right.
Works he lives and works in Chicago, but his family is from Bettendorf. We had been working with him. He actually had worked for a university in 2014, and we had partnered with him on a Fresh Films project. Lovely person. And then as we were exploring moving to Augie, we had talked to him about his college and then chose Augie instead, but stayed in touch with him. And then his office does training grants. And so since 2019, we've gotten a grant to train young people in our program.
So, and I think that is an important distinction because I talk to so many people. So because some people will get confused about the film stuff that's going on. So you have the Illinois Film Office, which is this man you're talking about, Mr. Hawley. And then you have a Quad Cities Film Office, which is Holly Sparkman and Doug Miller. And they're trying to bring people specifically to the Quad Cities, and they have some resources. And then Fresh Films is just its own entity that is really trying to access these Illinois Film Office, Quad Cities Film Office grant opportunities to build up the dream, which is to have this film studio, which you're well on your way to. But I interrupted you. So.
No, it's all good. It's your podcast. So the Illinois Film Office, so film offices have one major charge, and that is to bring film production and the revenue associated with film production to their community. So Peter wants everybody to come to Illinois. And Holly and Doug, once they're choosing Illinois, they're like, no, don't choose Chicago or Rantoul. Choose, really the Quad Cities. And then Peter, he would be like Rock Island or Moline. Like he doesn't want them. He doesn't want them in Davenport, right? So that's how film offices are. And so their big charge is to, can we stimulate the economy through film production, right? And so anyway, a few years ago, Peter Hawley's office at the state level, knowing how much, so Illinois does $700 million a year in film production. So they produce, like The Bear is produced in Chicago, and the HBO show Somebody Somewhere, and Chicago Med and PD and Chicago Fire are all produced, and they're all produced on sound stages, mostly at a stage space called CineSpace Studios, which, by the way, is the second largest studio complex, second to Warner Brothers in LA. So it's big. They bought up all these old steel mills in Chicago and started converting them into studio spaces. And a studio is literally a big empty box. So picture an Amazon warehouse, but with no like pillars inside or an airplane hangar, right? And it's just a big empty box with really good soundproofing, HVAC that doesn't make a lot of noise, good electrical because you got to hook up a lot of lights. And inside of it, we manufacture movies. So not tractors or seeds or bread, which is all done here, right? Or meat or chicken or whatever. So they manufacture movies. And the reason you need a big studio box is because Hollywood, almost everything we see is produced on a sound stage, right? Because they can control the weather and the lighting and the noise levels. And so almost everything we see, and I think we'd all like the show Friends, right? Monica's apartment doesn't exist in real life. It is built on a stage. And I was just talking because we were watching live theater. I think we all see live theater. You mentioned your daughter did Penguin, right? We see a theater show and we know it's fake. We know that they built the building and it's just on the stage. But film is the same way, right? They're building a building and it's just to film in. And so they'll build, like if we were in your office and this is where they were filming, they would build the whole thing, but it would only have 3 walls so that the cameras could come in and out, right? Or one wall might be retractable. And so they build on a stage so that they can build a 2-story house inside of a sound stage, direct the lighting, have the camera be able to easily move. And that's where they film most everything that we watch. So like Lord of the Rings, I'll always say like, oh, those outdoor scenes of the mountains, that's all real in New Zealand. But as soon as they walk into the castle and they are talking to the king, that is all on a sound stage, right? Yeah. The throne is created. And so,
or I think of Titanic when
they're
yes. in the room and he's got the handcuffs on and there's water everywhere. They're doing all of that inside.
They're not on a boat, hoping for the best, right?
And it's probably on a tilt table that's making the water all move, and
100%. And so I think so when people are like, oh, I never thought about that, right? Hollywood is beautifully mystical and magical and smoke and mirrors, and it's lovely, right? But when you pull the curtain back, I always say, like, think of the scene in Wizard of Oz, right, where she meets Oz and she pulls the curtain back, and like it's a real job. And there's artisans who are like, on our little movie this past summer, one of the characters has to sledgehammer through a brick wall. Well, we're not using a real brick wall. So Andy and Donnie and the rest of the team, they literally bought bricks at Menards, caulked them up to look like a wall, painted it white for the actor to sledgehammer through the fake wall and it looks amazing, but it wasn't, we're not sledgehammering through a real wall. But anyway, so it's mystical, magical, but there's these real jobs and this all occurs on a stage. And so the whole reason we are building or want to build a studio is to build an industry here, right? Because Holly and Doug, who are at the Quad State Film Office, and Peter, who's at the Illinois Film Office, if Illinois didn't have stages, we wouldn't have productions here because productions will come here. A good example is The Lot, which was the Farrelly Brothers show, which is now on Roku, came here in 2020 or 21, I don't remember. And they filmed in East Moline and they turned the Hyatt Bend into like, they pretended it was like the exterior of a hospital, like drive-through. And they filmed for like 5 days, all the exteriors, and then they left and went to Vancouver and did all the rest of the filming in the studio. And so we hear this time and time again, right? So they'll...
In Vancouver, we lived there, and there's a film school there.
And there's film studios there.
And it was a very popular place to film. And my sister is from Rock Island. She was in Loudermilk one season.
Oh, yeah, you told me this. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's where they filmed, was in Vancouver. But again, like, Vancouver is so expensive.
Right.
And you're bringing so many jobs, but then all of those people have to stay in those really expensive hotels and eat that really expensive food. And I bet it balloons the budget of the project to afford the region you're in. So if they could have filmed The Lot in East Moline and then jumped over to you, how much percentage could you save on a project budget by being in Rock Island?
Oh, huge, right? So they looked at, and Doug and Holly did some studies on this, right? Like, you are working and you want to go out after work, right? And so you go get your hamburger and a beer in Vancouver or Toronto or New York or even Chicago, right? And that costs you out of pocket. These are your wages now. What, 3 times more, at least twice more than it would here. But the rates here, so when studios are built, and so basically how the business model works is Netflix, NBC, ABC, Apple, Paramount, doesn't matter, whoever, Hallmark, they're producing, let's say Hallmark's going to produce a Christmas movie. They're going to rent a stage to produce the movie. Most of Christmas movies are all filmed in the summer. Doesn't snow a lot in the summer unless you're in South America, right? So they are in a stage so they can build the house, make it snow, put the sleds and the sleighs and all that kind of stuff out, right? So they'll rent the stage space, and they will hire local talent for a lot of the roles. Their key actors and their director and maybe some of the like department heads, like let's say the head art director, they might fly in from out of town. And so now they're being put up in local hotels and, they're doing catering locally, right? So our goal for this is to do the same thing, but here, right? So now we're going to build the box, which will be 2 stages of like 17,000 square feet. It's done. There's 2 stages because they want to film on one while they're building on the other because they don't want to have any downtime, right? And then they finish on set A and they move over to set, stage B where the new sets are, and then they reset on the other stage. But anyway, if they were to, so let's say NBC production rents here and they're going to produce, let's call it Field of Dreams, right? Which another story, right? They filmed up in Dyersville for the new Field of Dreams series, and then they up and left and went to Toronto and filmed the rest. But again, could you film in Dyersville the 8 days of exteriors and then film the 4 months of interiors in Rock Island? That's the goal, right? So build your stages in your space and all the other scenery on the stages here in Rock Island, and then you'll be employing actors and set construction and painters and accountants and people,
caterers and makeup artists,
everything.
And people could set up little Airbnbs for the fancy pants executives or for the everyday crew. I wonder, are there stats to how many jobs one production can? So you guys are I read online, in the budget range of from like $5 million to $30 million productions.
Yep.
So for that level of a production, how many jobs can one
have? The Bear, which a lot of people know from the Hulu series, they buy 153 lunches a day. That's how many people they have, right? So actors, set designers, carpenters, drivers, all the rest of the crew, the makeup artists, right? So that's how many people are employed. And they do this for 4 months, right? So that's a lot of lunches. It's a lot of people. And then, yes, there are a lot of local people, but there's a lot of non-local people who are staying at hotels, right? And all those people are going out just like they would after any other job, right? Out to dinner or for a beer or whatever after. So that's the Bear is a $30 million production. So 150 people is a lot, but we're like Fresh Films produces. Now we won't use the studio. We'll use it when it's not occupied, right? But like when we do our little baby productions, we're a 3-week production spending $500,000, which is a lot for us, but in Hollywood terms, really tiny. We spent last year and actually this year too, $60,000 in hotel spend in 3 weeks, right? We spent like close to that same amount in catering, and you go like, whoa. So we're excited about the studio because like we say all boats rise. Like we're not building, like I mentioned Skip Along before, it's a beautiful building, but we're not building a Fresh Films building. We want to build a studio so that other people will come here. We want NBC to come here, employ people here, buy their catering from all our local restaurants, house their people in our local hotels. And then our vision is, a few years from now, guess what? There has to be more restaurants to service everybody. There needs to be maybe there's another hotel in downtown Rock Island. Maybe there's a lot less for lease signs in downtown Rock Island because there's just more people who need a place to eat, a place to go, a place to hang out, a place to, stay overnight. Like same with your Airbnbs, like, right? So
yeah, I'm kind of a brat sometimes to the city of Rock Island, I'm going to admit it, but one of my asks for them has always been to have just a one sheet on every business assistance project to say, okay, so if we're going to invest, so Rock Island, for example, is going to reimburse Fresh Films up to $2 million for, because the project overall is like $12 million.
Right.
So we're going to give a $2 million investment. And sometimes it's a little nebulous, like, well, what do we get out of that?
Yeah, as a homeowner in Rock Island,
or just as a community,
right.
And so I've always been like so excited about your project because it all feels so tangible. That
Thanks.
As this hits the ground, the people who are going to benefit are probably going to be Rock Islanders. You have a pipeline from Augustana. It might retain people in that education path to stay here instead of brain draining out.
Yeah.
One of my good friends works for, well, she's not a good friend, but lifelong acquaintance. I really respect her. Went to high school together, ended up working for MTV and doing all this creative stuff. And I just think like, whoa, what if something like this would have existed when Ben Chappell's a super duper artist. My sister is an artist.
Right.
Like all these super artistic, creative people from this place, and what opportunities didn't exist for them here. They had to go somewhere else to find that. So I'm excited about the possibility of retaining talent. Of Augustana just bought the School of Nursing, and so you can see that career path into our hospitals. And this is just another career path for people. Yep. But it also just generates a ton for our very hyper local community. And in some ways, we really invest a lot in industry. So you said this is a factory, but we're not making a piece of equipment. We're putting together a production. More and more of those factory jobs in some ways are mechanized. So like the impact economically can be hard to capture. It's like, will that create 10 jobs? Is that going to be a robot that does that? And this is so meaty. It's like, I know AI has a role in film too, but I don't think it's going to take over. It can't build a set. It can't come up with like, okay, now I have to go get the bricks from Lowe's. And, there's so much just hands-onness to the film industry, making sound effects, I don't know. I'm super excited about it because I think it, more than most of the projects I see, has this really far-reaching ability to really transform Rock Island in a super meaningful way, and kind of spur all these other things in the meantime, and just make us cooler. Like, how cool would it be if we had like a legitimate film studio?
Thank you. I love your excitement. We're so excited by this. Like, we're totally with you. Like, first of all, I think about nursing programs, right? And there's high school career paths for CNAs, and then there's welding career paths, there's construction. I was like, why isn't there an arts career path? And the arts is always like, oh, it's so magical, there's no careers there. And we're like, there's a ton of careers here. And they're super hands-on and weirdly cool because so much digital content. The Department of Labor has indicated that the career path of producers, directors, which is anything in production, is what they call a bright outlook job. So for the next 10 years, they expect job growth, not impacted by AI. It's all hands-on, and it's not just film and TV, but it's all the other jobs. But it's just, it's like, I feel like it also taps a young person, like the creative young person now is like, oh, like I do have a career path here. And it's so funny that you say like your sister flew and so we have a young man who was in our program, and he was an Augie grad also, and he was on our film last year, and he got this amazing opportunity. We have a partnership with NBC, and he got hired by the show Dig, which is the new Amy Poehler show, producing in LA. So out there he went with his little plane. Actually, he drove out there. But I'm like, oh my God, we just trained him and we exported him. And our excitement for this is let's import the production, which means we can have more job opportunities here. And then it was so funny.
But also, like, the whole world is run by connections, a web of networks and connections. So he goes off and meets Amy Poehler, like personal hero, I mean, amazing person, and says, because she's such a big producer and creative, there's this great place called Rock Island, Illinois, where you could come and do your project for X of the cost, So
I didn't think about that. That was a great idea. Like, Aiden, let's start talking.
Yeah.
Well, and I love this town. This town is weird cool, right? It's got this weird cool thing about it, right? And there's so much film history, right? Like Road to Perdition is based on the John Looney story, and then you've got the Blues Brothers. There's something there, but like AMC theaters started here. The 16 millimeter camera was invented here.
I did not know either of those things.
Like, it's weird. There's just like, you've got river, and the farmland is right here. You could turn the Broadway district, you change those cars out, and you've got 1920s really easily, right?
The old down by Sunset Marina is the Riverstone factory.
Yeah.
And I swear it would make the best setting for like a zombie movie, because all the glass windows are broken out in the little squares, and we have kind of every type of like topography and like feel.
Right. And I don't think we'll get a Marvel movie here, but that's okay. Right. But like the show Somebody Somewhere, the HBO show, uses Lockport, Illinois as rural Kansas, and we're like, we can give you rural Kansas because Alito and Viola and what else? Well, what am I missing? Like, there's so much fun. All the farm countries right there. Right, it's all there.
Yeah,
for real. Like 5 minutes away. And that's another thing. Like, right, to get the farm for that show, they're driving 40 miles, which in traffic is probably 90 minutes. You're doing this entire massive crew move. It's really. And we could do it in 10 minutes, right? And so it's just...
And anyway. You could stay at an Airbnb that you could walk to the film set every day, and then walk to get yourself food, and then walk back to your place you're going to sleep. It would be so low-key, where you wouldn't have to get in a car necessarily and drive everywhere, and learn about some history and be... Yeah, I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's funny. Our producer last year was from New York, and he came here, and he went to Arts Alley, and he was like, is this a movie set, or is this a real downtown? Now, we don't want our downtown because it doesn't have enough business to perpetually look like an empty movie set. But he was just like,
niche. There could be a need for that.
But it was cool. He was like, oh my gosh, like this is like ready made. It's super cute, and it's just kind of fun. I like the surprise factor too. Like whether it's the LA students, like, oh my God, you have a basement, right? It's like this wow factor with the Boston students. Another really funny story. They're like, we had never eaten at Portillo's, so they're staying in Moline, driving or door dashing Porties from Davenport down to their hotel because they had to have it. It was hilarious.
That's
I was
so
like,
cool.
Okay.
So how does our community help you get there? Because you fundraise, like, are you around 9 million and you're going for 12, or where are you right now?
So we over the past couple months have gotten have another grant from the state of Illinois, from Senator Mike Halpin's office and Representative Greg Johnson's office. So there's some funds there to help us get there. And then we have a few local investors totaling about $500,000. And then we just got a new donor who's a family that grew up in Rock Island, who heard about the project, and their whole mission is keep people living and working here and stimulate the local. And that was a $500,000 donation. So we are within like $300,000 of breaking ground.
No way.
Yeah. And about $1.5 million, like after that, we'll have like $1.5 million more to go. But we want to break ground because as soon as we break ground, we have a timetable and we can say to ex Hollywood producer, hey, we're open in a year. You want to, and they start looking about 6 months out. So if we can start that noise, it would be awesome, right?
And is it a tax deductible donation because you are a nonprofit? So if someone wants to give money, is it a tax write-off?
Yes. And so we are a weird setup because Fresh Films got the grant. We're a nonprofit, but the studio itself will have to be a separate entity because it's a real estate venture and Netflix or NBC will have to rent it. So it will be...
It's like, two different...
Right. So it'll be a studio, but the funds that we've gotten from the state of Illinois and Rep Halpin and these donations literally are allocated for the studio. So they go in as a tax deductible donation. But the studio itself is a business, right? So when, let's say Netflix rents, there's revenue created from the rental. And so investors get an equity. So that typical business, so they have invested and they will get equity. So for an investment of $115,000, they will own 2% of the business. People who donate not only get a tax deductible donation, but like the $500,000 donation that just came in becomes equity for Fresh Films. So our programming long term it's like an annuity, right? We get a percentage, like we'll own a percentage of the studio and that percentage ownership will create revenue and that revenue will go right into our programs so that we can run more training programs.
When I was at school, I had a class and it was called social entrepreneurship in my master's program. And it was how do nonprofits, utilize business strategies to feed the nonprofit to serve the mission. Right. And so it's this beautiful blending of...
Well, and if you haven't ever talked to the Printers Mark team downtown, like you should have them on. Like I didn't even know about them. And we do, no offense to all the other printers, but we do so much of our printing there because they are when the nonprofit has that, like a social enterprise. Yeah. So they literally, all of their profits go to support people with mental health. So they are tied to,
wow,
I don't remember which org locally, but it's like, oh, I can get my business cards printed here and the money supports people with who mental health supports, right? Like anyway, but so social enterprise, like, so the studio revenues, if you invest in it, you get to put the money in your pocket. If you donate it, you're gonna help us fuel future programs for youth. And then we said, like, we don't want to own more than 20% of this. So, but if we got all these donations and we did own, let's call it 30%, we would keep 20% so that we could make sure our programs continue to be funded from that equity. But then we take the other 10% and put it back into the community. So we're like, what if we partner with somebody to run a culinary training program so we could have more restaurants? Because restaurants, caterers are needed for film. So it's sort of this kind of holistic, like it'll serve the industry that we're creating, but it will also serve the community kind of thing. So we don't know someone asked us like, oh, but do you have a board yet to determine where you'll deploy those funds? We're like, no, we have to raise the money first, but that would be something we would want to do, right? Like if the community owns, our vision was that this originally could be community owned, like the Packers Stadium, how everybody owns a piece of this. And then all the money that's made doesn't go into wealthy individual pocket. It goes into, it supports the Fresh Films program and it supports Skip Along. It supports like whatever it supports, right? Like locally, or a local person could get a little money in their pocket. Like I don't know. I think it'd be fun, right? To
but it sounds like you have an open mind and you're creative and you're just kind of
right.
You fully grasp the impact that this hybrid business nonprofit could have on our community and the things that it could.
Yep. Yeah. Now there is a TIF grant, right? So they're in a TIF district, so they're going to give. And they would do this to any business that's building, right? So, build in Rock Island and we'll give you, I can't remember how it works, but you get a tax break.
It's reimbursable.
Reimbursable tax. Yeah. Okay. So you're still paying real estate tax, but it's reimbursed. Yeah.
Yeah. They take if you take the little place where the TIF is, they freeze at that moment in time the property tax base. And then that district goes for like 23 years. And then, so your little square block of property was at zero probably, or it's really low. It's like maybe that land was worth $100,000.
Right.
And after you build the studio, it'll be $12 million. And so when the TIF ends, during the TIF period, all that real estate tax goes into the TIF and it's used to pay out economic development. But when the TIF ends, it goes back to the schools, to the city, to the county.
Yep.
And so it's a really powerful tool that your project is like the perfect example of where it's really meaningful, because it allows the growth, and then you have this huge recapture on the back end. Yeah. When there's like no plan, sometimes they can get a little unruly, but
yeah, and you explained it really well. I can't explain it that well, but it the whole goal of a TIF for a lot of these are just to really stimulate economic growth.
Yeah, there's kind of a sense of like, if not for this project might not happen.
Yeah.
And that's really the piece. I mean, downtown Rock Island is obviously struggles with blight, and I think probably that census tract is pretty impoverished, and so it's a very eligible area, and this project is kind of exactly what is transformative. Yeah. It's like the perfect project for a lot of what's really meaningful economic development.
Thank you.
It's so exciting.
Well, and it's funny, we were talking about jobs, like everyone's like hot on getting data centers, right? And even data centers, you have to build the infrastructure, you have to make sure your power supply and your water supply, but you don't employ that many people at a data center, right? And then we're like, okay, because people get like, oh, you're building Fresh Homes, a new facility. We're like, no, we're building a studio, so if we want film to come here, we have to build the infrastructure, right? Just like you'd have to build data center infrastructure, we have to build a studio box, the infrastructure, but the employment and the number of people employed and all the like reverb out. So the Illinois Film Office through Peter Hawley's office did a study. So the way that I find the tax credit fascinating. So the state of Illinois, if you do a $10 million production in the state of Illinois, the tax credit is 35%. Let's see if I can do my math right. So $3.5 million is what the state will give. The NBC will get a tax credit for $3.5 million. So their $10 million budget was just reduced by 3.5. In Rock Island County, in any county outside of Chicago, that tax credit from the state is 40%.
Whoa.
So that same $10 million production could get a $4 million tax credit check from the state. And people are like, oh my God, we're giving away money. And so the state of Illinois and the DCO, everybody did a study and said, okay, if we give away this $4 million, what happens, right? And their study concluded that for every dollar they give away, it creates an impact of almost $7. So if they give away so we get a $10 million production here, they give $4 million away, NBC gets this nice $4 million check, the community is getting 4 times 7, so $28 million.
Wow. Right,
of impact locally. And we can see it. So I was in La Flama with my t-shirt on, my little Fresh Home shirt, and I was just having lunch there, and the owner came up to me and he was like, oh my God, you're with Fresh Homes? I was like, yeah. He's like, how's your lunch? I was like, oh, it's good. It's great. And he was like, thank you so much for the catering. And I was like, oh, because we hired them to just do 2 days of catering, and they brought their lamp and they had the chips. It was so, everyone loved it. But like, we need to help each other, right? Because they don't have that many people in there for lunch yet. And I think people need to be like, oh yeah, we should go to La Flama, right? Like, we all have to kind of patronize each other. Like, I don't know if I haven't been to Flips yet. My daughters have all been like 15 times.
I love it. I've been a ton.
I'm like,
I go there by myself.
Look at it, just like
I'm
going
writing
crazy
in my journal and planning out my life and eating at Flips.
I know, but it's like
I love Pancake House too, though. You got to go to both. You can't.
Well, and Pancake House, I don't think they have suffered. Like you'd think, oh gosh, no. Sometimes it's hard to get in there at lunch, and it is. I like, people just want to go places.
Well, and you know what's so interesting to me is like, I feel like there's this idea that you can't do business in Rock Island or something. Like, people are scared. They're scared to be the first one to do a housing thing. They're scared to be the first person to bring a business here. But I've opened a business here, and I know how busy and how lovely people are. You look at Flips, it's so busy. I think if you build something that people like and enjoy, you have loyal customers, and you'll be okay. Yeah. I just my parents just got ribs from Miles Barbecue, which is amazing.
Where is that?
It's on 7th Avenue and what's that cross street? Like right off 11th Street. So like,
Oh, okay.
it's a white house and it's mostly just takeout,
Yummy.
but like delicious ribs. And I stopped in there and I'm like, how's it going? He's like, great. I had to get a bigger, whatever you make ribs in, smoker or, and so I think even Fresh Films choosing to come to Rock Island, it's like when you build things, other people come and they take a chance. And Accenture Credit Union is coming. And, you know, we haven't been able to get a grocery store for like 35 years. But I'm like, maybe this project would be like, you know what, we need another grocery store.
So we have Hy-Vee and Aldi, but we need, and like, I'm assuming
West End. Like,
yeah, there's nothing down there, right?
Yeah. And even for the folks who live in like Watch Hill, kind of up the hill from the West End, I feel like there is a place maybe on the old Blackhawk Center Plaza to put some sort of a grocery store. But I think every one of us that takes a chance on Rock Island and kind of builds up that business base, then the next people who come along are like, yeah, it's not scary to do business in Rock Island.
You know, it's funny that you say that because the reality is like,
it might be because you didn't grow up here, so you're not having swirl in your head all the things you hear over a lifetime about.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But people love Rock Island. Mm-hmm. Like you see people like at a football game, like they're all hanging out and for a Rocket game. But like, because I've had 3 daughters graduate from Rock Island High School, all the scholarship night, there's so much money from local, like people who graduated classes 61, classes 65, like people are so passionate about this community. And I'm like that energy needs to, I don't know, be reignited. I can't figure it out because I'm like, why aren't people investing in Rock Island? Like there is a huge energy here, right? My oldest went to Augie. I can't believe they all go over, not to say there's anything wrong with Davenport, but they're all driving over to the strip where DACFAC and everything is now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why are you not going to, they do go to Cavs, right? So, but it's like, they go to Kavanaugh's in a couple places, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, if people would invest and open some things.
Yeah.
In downtown Rock Island, it would be amazing, right?
Well, I think part of that, this is a total aside, but is just transportation from Augustana to the district. Like little
Well, but clearly if they're driving,
yeah, that's true.
They figured it out.
That's true. But when they're in college, like if you could just get them on a trolley and take them
downtown.
Exactly. Maybe, you know, I don't know how you solve that.
Yeah, that's funny.
Because I was here back in like the 90s. I was in high school when the district was so busy all the time.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, even when we moved here in 2016, the district was still hopping. It's only, I think, since COVID and maybe a couple other changes that
I think it's COVID. I think people are not drinking as much. There's been all this research about the reduction in alcohol use and the increase in marijuana. For the first time, people are smoking weed more than they're drinking.
Wow.
And so I think there's also just been a reduction in like people going to bars.
Yeah.
It's just I also think people maybe don't have as much, if you're doing well, you're doing really well. But for the average person, maybe just not as much fun money or like walking around money or.
True. And it's almost like we need to get 3 or 4 or 5 businesses like Ribco and the bagel. I haven't been to the new bagel shop yet, but it's like we need a collection of just 3 or 4 to go. We're all moving in together, right? Mm-hmm. Because like you need, like, is it Icons? It's pretty cute down there, right? And it just like you need an energy of a few. I was bummed when Theo's, like, it didn't last very long, and I was like, oh, you just need a little bit more time because it was a cool place to go, right? Yeah. And so
I think Theo's is going to wait. They're reopening as Narratives Cafe. And so they're kind of like a social entrepreneurship thing where they'll have young people kind of selling coffee. But there's a new coffee shop coming downtown called Brewed Awakening, which is supposed to be pretty cool.
I love that. Yeah. Super cute.
Refined Fit Lab, I think, is a really cool downtown business that offers like very cool classes. And I mean, there's so many little gems. And
and it's like, how do I not know this? That like, and I don't know. Do we need a marketing campaign that tells people what's down there? Because they know the Pancake House is down there.
We could just have all the business owners walk around and then just run into each other in the street and be like, "Who are you? Like, what do you do?"
I love it. I love it. I love it. So cute.
This might be controversial, and I don't want to drag you into anything, but you've really been in the district over this whole social service ordinance and Like, you were literally right next door to the overnight shelter.
Yeah.
I mean, if anyone felt the impact of that, and so we don't need to get into it too much, but, and you've also come from big cities where the issue of homelessness is an issue,
Right.
like it is across the whole country. I'm just wondering how you've noticed as a business owner, maybe before the shelter, during the shelter, at this point where, the third place is open, what you think the downtown needs for the future. Like, if you're open to talking about that, I just love your perspective.
Well, so our office is at 4th and 19th, kind of across the kitty corner from the library and next to the former Project Now building, which then was converted into the emergency shelter. And so when the shelter opened, there was a lot of hullabaloo and okay, fine. But what we noticed being next door, and we have children, right? We have 14, 15, 16, 17s coming in, right? And so, but the biggest thing was a line of people starting at 5 p.m. and the shelter opened at 9. And there were some, arguments and clashes, and we were like, what is, So I met with Dwight and I was like, why can't the shelter just open at 6? He's like, oh, well, or why? And I don't, because we're not, we're in the nonprofit sector, but we don't work in the housing
and
sector.
You're not like me. You're not reading through all the ordinances that
Probably
are like,
not.
Your shelter can only be open for 12 hours.
Well, and I didn't know. Yeah. So he said, our shelter is open from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 7, whatever. And I was like, okay, so then why are they out there at 6 p.m.? This is me being completely ignorant. And he's like, well, they line up because they want a spot in the shelter. And I'm thinking, as a human, it's freezing out. And now everybody's standing outside to get a spot in the shelter. But they're standing outside in the freezing cold from 6 to 9, which can't be healthy, right? And then we come to work and at 8, and people are sitting outside the building because it closed. And so I think like, okay, we clearly need a shelter, and it was full every night, and we clearly don't want people freezing outside. But like, there needs to be like a continuum of care. Like, and I think people would say like, oh, well, there's a food pantry down the street, or there's a food kitchen, blah, blah, whatever. And I'd be like, well, how are they getting there? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, so my point is, the third place, we talked about this earlier, like, I think the third place is really cool. But what happens at 5 o'clock when it closes? And so we've been, impacted a little bit. Like, there was someone sleeping on our front stairs, and we were like, hey, sorry, I can't really sleep here, right? Mm-hmm. There's been a few times where right in between our office and the next, there's someone like a couple tents. And again, you feel like such a bad neighbor being like, hey, you can't really have your tent here. But we think of it also like it's a business perspective, but also like we have children coming. So we're looking at a safety thing, and we probably don't know enough about the unhoused community. People might say, oh, it's not unsafe.
Well, some people are unsafe. I mean, yeah. And you have private property. Right. So you have a right to your private property to be your private property.
Right.
And so it's not and I'm very, to full disclosure, like I'm pretty, I don't like the ordinance. I'm pretty pro, how do we figure out how to solve this problem?
Right.
But I also deeply understood the concerns of business owners, and it was all the rules too. Like, why do you have to kick people out at 7 a.m.? Well, because there's rules. And then where are they supposed to go? Well, at that time, there was no third place. Right. So there was nowhere for people to go, but they can't sleep on your porch.
Right.
And yeah, and I think, like you said, the person who was maybe there the other day, just being like, hey, you can't sleep here. And have you found mostly that people are like, ooh, sorry, and they move? Or have you had anything like scary happen?
No, nothing. I mean, no argumentative. We've heard, because a lot of people will congregate sort of right on the perimeter of the library, which I also think is interesting, because as libraries are trying to be part of the community, I think, like, people, you get intimidated. You're like, like just like you might with a group of teenagers, right? And so you're like,
and libraries are kind of an interesting place because they're a public place. So they become in a community like the only place that people can go without being shoved out. Yeah.
And so we've heard some arguments, some, swearing across the street. People are having an argument, but that could happen anywhere, and it doesn't necessarily mean that a part of the unhoused community, but that, so that sometimes will occur. It's interesting. Like we've noticed going into downtown Rock Island, like we picked up food during one of our Tuesday, Thursday programs, and we went to Soy 2 and picked up some food. And there are a lot of people sort of just hanging out outside of the Project Now building. Mm-hmm. And for better or for worse, my daughter picked up the food. She was a senior at the time at Rocky. And she was like, Mom, can you come with me? I'm a little nervous. And as a mom, you're like, it's okay. You don't need to be nervous. They're not doing anything. They're just hanging out. Mm-hmm. But people aren't used to it, right? And so you wonder with Ribco, did you hear like they're going to close temporarily?
Yeah, and I actually know Zach. I think he's a really great guy.
Oh, he's awesome.
I think he went in trying to do everything the right way and pay people really well and offer, and so I think he's going to figure it out. I think he's restructuring and kind of taking a beat to maybe reassess, but I still have a lot of hope and belief.
Oh, no, I think I'm just wondering, like,
he's
was
not
business
closing,
slightly, but was it impacted because there's homeless walking around and people aren't used to it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but then you sound like that girl, right? Like, I don't want to be that person who's like, oh, wait, let's push it somewhere else. Like, but are there jobs? Are there services? Yeah. Are there places to get dinner? Are there places to just hang out, right? So that,
I mean, it's really a hard issue, and
right.
I just appreciate you talking about it. And I don't know if you ever felt villainized as a business owner or... Well,
the bottom line is people, there is a couple comments I think on like boards are like, oh, they don't want they don't like homeless. And I'm like, we're a nonprofit. We work and engage young people from really underserved communities, right? We're working with young people with one of our program sites in Boston is 100% young people with who are neurodiverse. Like, so we don't work in the unhoused community, but we're a nonprofit that supports young people, and we're workforce development and youth development, not
and you've
housing.
Also exist in all these major cities where this is a problem on a much larger scale.
Right, so, but we don't intimately like work in the housing sector, right? But I have hope because Rock Island has called people together to say like, and then United Way and the Community Foundation are really trying to get a coalition of like community organizations together to collectively say like, what do we need to do here, right? Like what, and not again, we're not trying to get a broom and sweep people somewhere, like, but what services are needed. Mental health services, medical services, like other things. Yeah. It's hard. And at the same time, Rock Island's really trying to build up business, right? It's sort of, it's challenging.
It's really hard because, and a lot of the folks who maybe are hanging out outside aren't necessarily unhoused. They probably live in the community, but maybe they don't have the resources to go into the restaurants to buy the food so when the weather's nice, they're just walking around maybe a block or two away from their own neighborhood, their own home, but they don't necessarily have a place to go, so they're enjoying a public space.
Which is totally fine, right?
But I think your point is very valid that some people will see a congregated group of people who don't look like maybe they have the resources or maybe are a more concentrated group of Black men or people of color. And it is in some, human nature to be like, I don't know if I'm safe here. And there's so many things that go into that. And that it's not, I think that is actually a much deeper and more meaningful conversation to have is like, as Rock Island, how do we address this issue with a lot of honesty, with a lot of, I like one of your projects was the I Am Able, and it's kind of inside the word disabled. And you guys did this movie about the Penguin Project, which my daughter has done. And everyone should check it out. It's Jeff Cousins at Augustana and Center for the Living Arts, which is one of my favorite Rock Island businesses. And then Fresh Films is telling the story. And you tell this story about these kids who put on a performance, and yes, they are disabled, but you go to these performances and you just feel like a better human being, and like they have so much to offer. And my daughter has gotten so much out of being a mentor, and the power of storytelling is working on that narrative. You may see a person with a disability and not understand the community and be a little bit like, I don't know how to interact with that
Same
person.
thing. Yep.
It's the same thing.
Yep, totally.
And oftentimes it's people who are young and are in that system who then grow up to be the person who doesn't quite have a place to go. Maybe if they have a family with money and resources, but for people who are in poverty, that's what I see a lot in the getting to know people in the unhoused community. There are a lot of people who are just in grown-up bodies with disabilities, with mental health issues, but similar to how you might just be like, I'm not sure how to interact with that person.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing what I would do if I was on the street.
Right.
They're talking to themselves, but just, I feel like there's this other better way to do it in Rock Island where it's like, if you're downtown, you kind of start to know the characters. And if you know them by name, and if you're like, hey, Matt, and oh, my mom died. I'm oh my gosh. And then next time, like, how's your mom? And you don't have to do anything for them, and you're just interacting with them like a human.
Right.
But then sometimes you'll have someone who's really being inappropriate, and as a city and as a community, we deserve to have like basic safety rights respected. Like if someone is openly drinking liquor on the street or in a fist fight or, and so kind of trying to distinguish between, oh, this person is now breaking a law. They're breaking the social contract. We're all trying to be down here safe together, and they're not doing that anymore, so we're going to address it. But if they're just hanging outside while poor, how do we orient ourselves toward that? Because as a country, we just have more and more poor and struggling people. We have less and less support for people with disabilities. I worry about kids with disabilities today. Where will they be in 10 years without supportive housing, without disability protections? Will they become that person on the street that then we're like, now you kind of freak me out? And I'm not saying you're saying that.
No, but it's interesting. It needs to be like a broader, although it's a podcast, it is a broader conversation.
We need to make a documentary about it.
No. But the whole point of even our documentary, I'm Able, is to shine the light on people with disabilities, because we often maybe we don't interact with people with disabilities, so we don't know, or we hear a child screaming or throwing a temper tantrum, but we had no idea they, let's say, had autism and couldn't, communicate verbally, right? Or whatever it might be, or someone who's in a wheelchair and we're a little skittish. But so part of it was through the Penguin Project and the lens of getting to know just people. Mm-hmm. And people in the disabled community are often labeled disabled first, right? So that's the autistic child, the family with the Down syndrome child, and maybe as a therapist, you would agree or disagree, but I feel like that's how we always hear about people with disabilities, mm-hmm. right? And part of this was to showcase that you may have a disability, but you can sing and you're funny and you're interacting and you have a job and you have a family, mm-hmm. But I never thought about sort of what you said, sort of the longer term spectrum, right? Of people who might have a disability, but they're not from a family that has the means. And so where do they go in 10 years, right? Or I think about what you said about,
I see a lot of unhoused people who I'm a mental health I'm a mental health person. I cannot diagnose people, but when I hang out at the Third Place, I'm like, if you were my client, you're on the spectrum. And I wonder if because you're in this big man body and you're, I think there's some research that autism is really underdiagnosed in Black women, for example. I see it, and I'm like, you don't really fit in anywhere, and mm-hmm. and you have nowhere to go. And no one in your community can tell you where to go.
Right.
They can move you along,
right.
but they can't tell you where
right.
to be. And there's nowhere for you to be.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And they can't be on your front
right.
porch. And you have the right to say, you can't be on my front porch. It's just, but yeah, I'm going to do this I just took pictures with my iPhone on portrait mode. That's the secret to the photos. But with people's permission, these more up close photos. And I'm really intrigued by this idea of the ordinance because it's 1,000 feet. And I just have this.
What do you mean? What's 1,000 feet?
You can't be, the social service entity can't be within 1,000 feet of all these different things. So it can't be within 1,000 feet of another nonprofit, of a similar type of service provider.
Okay.
Of a daycare, a school, park, all sorts of stuff. So in the map of Rock Island, there's really nowhere for an overnight shelter, the Third Place, if they need a new building for them to go. And I have this idea of 1,000 feet from love, and that's the distance of the Eiffel Tower. Or if you look at someone from across the street or you haven't gotten up close yet, you're not so sure. And when you look at people up close and you start to see them, because similar to what you were saying, it's like the first thing you see is like, oh, that might be a homeless person.
Right.
Or at least that person is a poor person.
Right.
And then you get up close and you're like seeing smile lines and humor.
No, it's true,
and,
right?
You
if
know,
you can get to know someone, right? But
yeah.
It's interesting what you said. So now I'm sort of horrified that we might look at people and be like, oh, they're, I'm not comfortable, right? Like as a group that works with a lot of we are teenagers and young adults, right? And we work with a lot of young men of color, and it's interesting when people, like, there'll be 3 or 4 young men together and people get nervous and we're like, what are you nervous about? Like, they're just teenagers. And it's
teenagers are my husband's always like, the scariest group to me is a group of teenagers.
Yeah. But it's funny because we've made it a point to basically try to demystify and say, like, no, they're not scary. They're just teens. They're very similar to what we were like 25, 35, 40 years ago, right? But it's interesting. Even I'm like, why aren't I more... Yeah. Like, maybe I just don't know them, right? And so, but it really just takes, I love your idea of
and I think the third place would like to get a spot that's less like on a corner and just the logistics of that corner where everyone's like heaved out the front door and just kind of standing there. Because I think that group of people standing there has a similar effect. It kind of makes people nervous. But I'm there a lot. Yeah. And then you're just like, oh, that's just John and that's Sue. And they're sweet and funny and harmless. And then you have, what the issue is more, it's like the people kind of preying on that population. So it's like, that's a bunch of vulnerable people. And so it's not really people who are unhoused, but it's this element that kind of lingers around them who may be selling drugs or trying to sex traffic and that's where, to me, a lot of the issues come up is anytime you have a vulnerable population, you're going to attract harmful people, but we kind of blame the vulnerable person for the harmful people hanging out at the periphery.
That is okay. This is an awesome conversation because I never thought of it that way, but you're completely right? There's
yeah, like most women walking around downtown who are vulnerable are just like constantly having to turn down being solicited.
Yeah.
All the time. All the young women who are unhoused are facing that all the time.
Wow.
Because there's a market there for pushing
100%.
Things. And, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I never thought of it that way. So thank you for right? You're right. There's just good people who are in a situation, but then there's other people who are like, okay, good.
Yeah. But as you get to know people in the downtown area, it's like you kind of get to know, or you could ask, I think Christy and Chloe are such a great resource. Like, what's the deal with this guy? He's hanging out sometimes in the back of my building. He makes me kind of nervous. What do I need to know about this person? Yeah. And they'd probably be able to give you a heads up. And there are people who are really struggling with issues, and someone might even say, like, you know what, if you see him and you should call the police. Or, this lady just does that around 3:00 every day and let someone know, but if you can tolerate it, it'll probably be over in 10 minutes. Because you probably kind of know the characters a little bit.
Yeah, that not tons, but you're right. Like, just even meeting with them and them saying like, oh, so-and-so is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a push right now to move them out of the downtown. Yeah. And I think the idea is that that will help, but I actually see the opposite happening. I think stats will tell you across the country that unhoused people just gather in cities. They're in the hub of where the downtowns are, and they're not really in other places. So if they are forced to move away, maybe their location now isn't completely ideal. I think the people will still be there, but it'll be more like the problem you had a couple of years ago where they're there, but they have nowhere to go. Yeah. Which makes it, in my mind, worse. But anyway, thanks for engaging me in that, because I've tried to talk to I have talked to business owners, but they're very much like, I'll talk to you, but maybe not on the record.
It's hard. Like, you want to do the right thing, and then you have to I still have to make sure 14-year-olds and their parents feel comfortable coming to our program. And so then you go, okay, how do we do both? Yeah. Right. And so, and I don't know. You just want to, and like, but there isn't enough conversation about it, right? Should you give out $5 when they're begging for it, or like, I don't know who he was, but so, this was a while ago, like maybe 6 or 8 months ago. I was going into Pancake House, and someone asked, or was like, "Hey, do you have any money?" And I was like, "How would I buy you lunch?" Right? And so, like, I feel like if we could just, as a person, just be like, "Hey, could I do this instead?" kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure,
Yeah. And, we have the Nest Cafe and we have the Third Place and Project Now. And I think there are a lot of like institutional responses to hunger, and, they've partnered with laundry services and bus tokens. And so in some ways the population isn't left completely without resources. It's more just like the roof over the head, like the shelter. We need more shelter.
Which would be, yes.
And housing. That's the big one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. All right.
Basically, we just need to figure out the whole economy and how to take care of people. And then, but yeah, I think in a community, how do you have conversations without, I respect that like people have all sorts of different approaches to it and thoughts on it. And when all that stuff was going down, what was challenging for me was like nobody is having like a public conversation to model how to do that, or how to say I have reservations, and no one's gonna throw an arrow at me because I'm like, sometimes I feel uncomfortable.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Sometimes I feel uncomfortable. Like, I mean, every woman in America feels a little uncomfortable when they walk around in public.
Exactly. Mom, what is that person saying? Oh, that is, anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think they've started to, though, right? I think the city and Project Now was trying to do the right thing when it was going to be really, really, really cold a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was the right thing to do. Did it execute 100% the way they thought it was going to? No. Did it create some other issues? It's like yes. And so, but I do think I've sensed that there is definitely more listening going on and trying to sort of understand, but it was hard. I don't know why I was at City Hall for whatever their monthly meeting, the meeting where Third Place where they were voting on it, right? The city council. And it was interesting, right? This is what we want to do. And like, and I'm like, it's not black and white, right? There's like, I always say, well, in this country right now, right, it's red or blue, right? I'm like, there's like 1,000 colors in the box. Like, do we have to only, it's not black or white, it's not red or blue, it's not chocolate or vanilla. Like can we just kind of talk? But it's hard, right? Because
I also think what was interesting about that time was it was like you're on the heels of COVID, so all these businesses are still reeling and tons of people closed, and so you had that hit, and then you also had all that street construction where people people's businesses couldn't get traveled to, and so it was like a three, and then this shelter popped up, and I think it saved lives. It was they'd never done it before, so they did the best they could but it was like boom, 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 and I wonder if only one of those things had happened, if it wouldn't have felt as overwhelming to the business owners.
That's true. I never actually thought about that, right? Because you forget once it's gone, right? It's COVID, and then, oh my gosh, you couldn't get to so many businesses for so long downtown. And then, maybe.
Yeah, so many things. But, well, I want to help you raise money for your project. And I'm just wondering, if anyone is interested in seeing this come to life, because I really think this could change Rock Island's future. What is the best way for them to get in touch with you to help get this over the finish line at least?
Oh my gosh. So
how do we come up with $300,000
to start that? Oh my gosh. You can donate today So on our website, freshfilms.org, we have a studio page, and on that page is my information, Crystal's and Michael's, and you can just literally reach out to us and let us know. I mean, I can give my email on the podcast. I mean, Kelli Feigley at freshfilms.org, Kelli with an I, Feigley, Feigley. But just go to our website. We're also going to try to do an event in the next couple of months at the Hauberg to let the community, because it was, we were on a conversation with some folks who work at Senator Duckworth's office locally, and they had no idea what we were doing. And we're like, oh my gosh, like I swear it was just in the news. Like, so I appreciate the opportunity on the podcast. Like, I think people just don't know about it. Everybody's in their silo doing their thing. Sometimes there's a little, like, people are like, oh, that's so cute, you're building a building, and we're like, no, we got to tell you the full story. So I appreciate, but we're just excited. We want this to happen for Rock Island. We want there to be something, you know. East Moline's got the Bend, Moline's got the Vibrant, the Mark, whatever. They've got live music, and like, I love Rock Island to have film, right? We do a lot. There's so much art in the Quad Cities, right? And then we have the Cultural Trust that just opened in Rock Island, and we've got Quad City Arts here. And I was like, what can't we can manufacture art here too, not just watch it, right? And so I just think it would be so cool, right? And so we hope people can see the vision of the jobs, like keeping young talent here, the opportunity for all the businesses that surround film to all, you know, get a piece of the action.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, come on board, get on our train. I don't know, I need an analogy, but like
get over the finish line, at least
us,
breaking
right.
ground. Maybe we can do a little, I wonder if I could do like a Facebook fundraising thing with some sort of link to you guys, or have you ever done a fundraising thing through Facebook?
Yeah, we have not, but we should. And we have a few people that just written us like small checks. And for those that are, have a little bit more, we kind of wanted to do a wall, and then we have an idea to do like Hollywood stars, but like on Fifth, where this is going, like in front of the studio, like
cool.
XYZ Family Foundation or whatever, for like donations of 25,000 or more, like you get a star on the Walk of Fame.
Yeah.
The JCs of the Quad Cities just became a donor, and there'll be a JC's classroom. So like I feel like there's energy.
Yeah.
We just need I said sometimes it feels like the starting line of the Bix, but everybody's not. There's no, like, the gun's not going to go off until someone goes over the line. And I was like, come on, people. Like, let's all start running together. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to ask, like, who are the famous old, you know, Rock Island, like, film, TV, creative people that would want to be on that Walk of Fame?
Right.
And how do we get some money for you guys and get you over the finish line?
Well, and I think if it's interesting going to the scholarship night, like the class of 1961 Rock Island is so giving. Like they gave away thousands of dollars in scholarships. And I was like, class of 1961, like not to pull from the same pot or not to divert resources, but I just like, there's so much passion in this community, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to build an industry here, like that isn't here, like, and then the film office will think, so there is a studio in Rantoul that got so this studio got $4 million, the one in Rantoul, Illinois got $1 million, and they're up and running, and some smaller. They've already done $13 million in economic, right. And they got like 2 Hallmark Christmas movies this summer. And I'm like, woo! Like, I'm like,
you're ready.
You're ready. Right. We're like, let's go. Like, don't give it all to Rantoul. I'm sure they're great people, but.
Wait, remind me again, how many of these exist in Illinois?
In Chicago, they're significant. Outside of Chicago, there's Rantoul. And we heard there's one going in like in the suburbs of Chicago.
Okay.
But there's nothing. There's 0 out here.
Wow.
Right. And then I just am like, oh my God. And then the film industry in Illinois is $700 million a year right now. It's predicted to be $1 billion. So I say to people, there's $300 million extra. Where's it going? Is it going to go more to Chicago? Is it going to go to Rantoul? We could get we're not getting all $300 million, but what if we got 50 million of it every year? But if we don't build it, they can't come, right? They won't come without it. That's the difference between, I think, what they talked about. Like, they've always been promoting film here, and you will get film, but only for a few days to shoot, like, on location exteriors. To get them to come for a significant amount of time, you have to have the infrastructure, which is a studio. And so that's what we want to build. And I'm like, oh my God, where's that 300 million going to go? Like, all to Chicago, to Rantoul. There's noise that someone in East St. Louis wants to build one because they will be in Illinois, but they don't have the funding yet. So I'm like, oh, let's go.
Right.
Let's go. And
break ground, get the projects coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we have an airport here. The train, we heard, is finally coming. Like, Peter Hawley will say, like, he said to us when this grant came up, he was like, you need, not us. Rock Island needs to apply. The region needs to apply. There's an airport here. There's going to be train service. Like you've got different than even Rantoul. There isn't as much infrastructure there. We have the second largest union crew base for live events and film. It's called IATSE. This like Chicago and Quad Cities is the second largest.
We have
right?
IMEG. Think of all the cool things that they can build.
Oh,
I mean, they're
100%.
like a world famous. We have all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah. Well,
John
and we
Deere,
got a river
you need
and
a tractor.
bridges and farms and like there's like historic neighborhoods. There's a lot here. What's the only thing that isn't here is the studio, and then
and also like casting extras. You have.
Oh, right.
All the people.
We just did this.
So if you went to a little rural town where maybe there was, I don't know how big Rantoul is.
It's near Champaign, but not very close.
Okay.
And they have a big exodus during the summers, right? Because
Yeah.
the students all leave. But it's so funny. So our recent film, we had to do a scene. We did it at Augie. It's basically a school cafeteria scene. And we needed extras. And I emailed, someone on the team emailed Dino and Tina. And he was like, no problem. We have a camp that's getting out. So you probably got it if your daughter was in the...
Well, she wasn't in it this summer, but all of her friends
Right.
were.
So there were literally tons of kids from Rocky and from Center that literally got paid to be... It's only $50 to be an extra one. But it's...
Yeah.
They sat there for 3 hours, ate some lunch, and are in a movie.
That's
super
amazing.
cute.
So then do they have an IMDb credit?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they'll be listed as an extra.
That's
it's
so
so
cool.
fun. So fun. But we just want this to happen for the community because we're like, well, what if it doesn't happen? And then there's a couple people who have said like, the timing, like there's a grant, there's a TIF, there's like it. If we don't build it, it might not come around again.
Well, and
right?
$300,000 in the grand scheme of things is not that much.
No.
There's a way to get
exactly.
it. Yeah.
So
and then you could break ground. You could start recruiting projects.
Yeah.
I have an idea for a TV show, but
Okay.
I don't know how to do any of that. So maybe one day I'll get my act together and I'll be like, how do you make a TV show? I'll have Eslen in to talk about
That's fine.
that.
We could do that because we could talk about pitch Bibles and who you pitch and
Yeah.
And our most recent one that we just did this summer is called Dearly Departed, and we could have a whole nother conversation on this. We had a pilot episode. We created a Bible, which is what you need, and it's like basically a PowerPoint pitch deck. What are the future episodes going to look like, and who are the characters, and etc. And Ron Howard's Imagine Entertainment took it a few years ago, and they were going to develop it into a TV show, and we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And very typical Hollywood, they had it for 2 years, and then they were like, you know what? We're actually going to close our kids division. We're not going to do anything with this. You can have it back. And we were like, what the heck? So a few years go by, we're trying to pitch it out, and Eslen was like, so we rebooted it for a 6-episode series, teamed with a YouTube creator out of California, and literally produced this 6 episodes, and now we're gonna put it on air. So like,
Oh my
I think we could just
gosh.
produce your TV show,
Oh my
as long as you're
gosh.
willing to like do it in a smaller budget, because the creator, like, they're just starting to put stuff on.
Wow.
It's crazy. So that could be a whole nother conversation.
I am going to buy myself a nice camera and start to do some stuff. I have a few different, like, I'm really interested in homelessness but just to like, I do stuff now with my camera, but on my phone, I'm going to buy I think I'm going to buy an FX5.
You're talking to the wrong person when you
Okay.
get technical, because I'm like, oh, what's that? Sony or Canon or...
It's a Sony. I
Yeah.
might get the FX3 because it's cheaper and just start to, I just like the idea of like humanizing people.
Yeah. Well, Nestle will say it's
And-
all in the lenses, so you have to get a couple good lenses.
Yep.
And those are not very expensive.
I've
But
been,
I think about
I've been watching
like,
the YouTube videos, but I would love to come to your children's class. Do you do one for adults?
we have a program for 18 to 29s,
See,
and it runs...
I'm too old, so
You can still come. You can come. Why did we not have you on the film set this summer just to hang out?
Well, you invited me, and we were out of town.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
I did get invited, and I was like really excited to check it out. And then
We'll have your
Yeah.
daughter in, and then you can just vicariously be her helicopter.
I'm like,
But,
Nora, can you like figure this out for me? Because
Yeah.
as you get older, I think it's harder to adopt new technologies, and kids are so good at it.
Well, first of all,
But-
this woman we're working with did her first 15 productions on iPhones shot horizontally. She doesn't shoot vertically, and it
Wow.
works fine, right? It's really about the story. And I think about and there's some there's a lot of studies that talk about, in particular for LGBTQ, and how shows like Will and Grace characters who, like, as you connected with gay characters, your acceptance of people who are LGBTQ are right in line, and it's what drove marriage equality and anyway, all sorts of stuff. And but I think about your idea with homelessness, and if you had a series or a film that really, at the core, there were a couple homeless characters, right? But you got to know them.
Yeah.
Like your acceptance, your empathy. So there's all this study that shows like acceptance, empathy, understanding of someone who's different from you. It doesn't have to be. It could be a character in a show as much as it could be a real person, as long as the window into the world is realistic, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like.
And some people think it's like predatory or exploitive to video or take pictures of people who are unhoused, but all the people I've talked to, they're like into it and they're okay with it, and it's like I think it's about permission and consent, right. But I think about my friend Akeem, who I'm like, if you saw him across the street, someone could feel afraid of him, and he's so sweet and kind, and him and his partner, who were both unhoused, they're housed now. That's the other thing, is you hang out long enough and you're like, people do get housed. Good. And they do get connected, and they had a baby, and the third place had a baby shower for them.
That's
and now
so cute.
This whole community like loves this baby, and I look at her and like what's possible for her future and how important it is to keep holding out hope for people, because I think my dad's grandpa was unhoused, and that was a long time ago. He rode the railways and
just stayed covered.
Yeah, it was just wandered, and it's like, that's just a point in time that you're seeing someone's life, but there's a whole human life there.
Yep.
And when you start to group people together, like, what are we going to do about these people? It's like,
no, it's hard.
Well, that's Matt, and that's Sally, and know.
Yeah, so I think let's collaborate. Let's do it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, I think the third place would probably be into it, because I think that's okay. I'll talk to them. But I think there's like a similar story to tell there.
And it's interesting because most people are like, let's do a documentary, and then you have all these people talking, and really you almost need to do maybe a documentary, but it has to be like a slice of life, not a these are the issues, right? Experts talking about it. You just need to get to know people, and that's what I even think are like, if you were to see I'm Able on PBS or at the Putnam or wherever it's playing, right? Like that's what you're just getting to know people, and that's like the coolest part of it. It's not a documentary on what it means to be disabled or what it means to have an intellectual disability, right? And so you just are meeting everyday people who are just living, right? And anyway, I think your idea is kind of, I don't know, you made me think.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't just talk, I thought.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. I've kept you way too long. I was like, I'm going to keep this one
there's
short.
Like, there's like 6 podcasts in one here. You can divide it up.
Yeah, but
cool.
I'm just so excited. I think this is like the penultimate example of a really, really powerful and productive use of tax dollars.
Yay.
And I can just see the ripple effect. And
Yay.
I love that you were a transplant and fell in love with this place, and
God, so funny.
Have decided to build a life here and stay here after your kids have graduated. And it's so cool.
We like it here. It's so funny. People were like, "What? Why are you still staying there?" I'm like, "Oh, we kind of like it."
Yeah.
Like it's just, and we're fairly outdoorsy, and so Esselyn will say, like, we can mountain bike within 10 minutes. You can ski at Snowstar. Like, there's a lot of outdoor here. You can ride the loop. Mm-hmm. It's just a
kayak down the Rock River, or I don't know. Maybe that's not safe. Don't take my
I don't know. Kayaking around here you can.
Row on the Mississippi.
Yeah, it's cool. Like it's a beautiful place, especially when the sun's out, like across the Mississippi. It's beautiful, right? And so anyway, thank you for having me.
Yay, awesome.
And if you need more, you know where to find me.
Okay, we might have you. I like next season I've been kind of doing updates because I'm like, I want to talk to the same person I talked to last year to see what they're up to.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, and this was wonderful.
Yay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much to Kelli Feigley for coming on, talking to me about Fresh Films, about the Rockline Studios, about her family falling in love with Rock Island and her kids' experience at Rock Island High School, as well as really having the courage to talk a little bit about what's going on downtown with homelessness. I just so appreciated this conversation, and I'm so freaking excited about this project. And I really do truly believe that it so perfectly capitalizes on what we have going for us, which is our people, artists and storytellers and restaurants and hospitality and education. And I just think it could be this beautiful new economy really for Rock Island that we so desperately need. Email Kelli or Eslyn or any of the team there. Let's see if we can get them across the finish line. $300,000. Looking up among many, many people, it's not that much. It was great being with you this week. Keep loving Rock Island, keep believing in Rock Island, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.